And here we go. Good morning. It's Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow here in Chippewa Falls, very close to where the Kamala Harris Tim Walz rally is going to be held here in the Eau Claire area. Todd Allbaugh is going to be checking in live from the site coming up in just a little bit. It is Wednesday, so of course we've got our weekly climate check report. Melissa Baldauff about a week or two ago reviewed the Kamala Harris record on climate issues. Now we're going to do the Tim Walz version, which could easily begin with him saying, "Hold my beer." It's a really good record. We'll talk about Republican reaction to the Walz news, some of the best Midwestern reactions to the Walz news, and then we'll also, in our homeroom segment, talk about the back-to-school checklist, not for school supplies, but for the checklist for, who is essentially a threat to public education, between the book bans and the budget cuts and things like that. So we'll get you reset for a new school year. That's all coming up 4 minutes from now. We'll get started at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you soon. Hey, Greg, do you still hear me?
I do, and I found a clip of the chords.
Oh, okay, good.
I don't know if you want to play it from the beginning.
Yeah. Do you
Okay.
can you play it right now or?
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay.
Life could be a dream.
Yep, that's the one. Yep. Also, I just fixed in the first hour. I said in last week's climate check, it was actually 2 weeks ago, so I just changed it to say in a recent climate check. So I just changed the wording in hour number 1.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Cool. Okay, cool.
all across Wisconsin from Civic Media. This is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Breitlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Wednesday morning, August 7th, 2024. Another beautiful day to have you here up north, live from Lake Minnesota. From wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network, the Civic Media app. You could be watching us on social media, Facebook or YouTube. You might be listening later on demand by podcast. However you did it, we appreciate you being part of your Wednesday. I got a question for you. Are you heading to the Eau Claire Harris Walz rally? And did you watch the rally in Philadelphia yesterday as the new Democratic ticket was formally introduced to supporters? Selena Heller, our Up North News reporter, talked to the Eau Claire chief of police up at the new Eau Claire, what do they call it there? The entertainment district, the event district, basically the new home of Country Jam, where there's all kinds of activity going on this morning. Todd Allbaugh will be reporting from there in a little while. We'll hear from the Eau Claire police chief, and we'll play some of the highlights from yesterday's rally in Philly from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the new running mate to Vice President Kamala Harris. We'll hear from Harris. We'll hear from Pennsylvania Mayor Josh Shapiro. And we'll also talk about some of our usual Wednesday segments. I mean, Wednesday is Climate Check Day, so Melissa Baldauff will be here. And was it a week or two ago, we reviewed the Kamala Harris record on climate matters. This week we'll do Tim Walz, who basically, as the old joke goes, could say, hold my beer, because it's a really good record. So we'll talk more about that. Sachin Chetta joins us in our second hour to talk about back to school, and not the back to school checklist of school supplies and not the back to school, supply list for teachers. This is more the back to school list of threats to public education. Everything from the proposed book bans to budget cuts to, the way vouchers are draining millions and millions of dollars away from our kids' public education. So we'll review that in this week's homeroom segment. We'll have some of the Republican reaction to the Tim Walz news. And seriously, it's just weird. There's just no other way to put it. And we'll have some of the best truly Midwestern reactions to Governor Tim Walz's ascension to the running mate spot as well. Along the way, you can call or text us at any point, 855-75-CIVIC. Again, 855-75-CIVICS, 855-752-4842. You can call or text that number. You can also use the Civic Media app, or you can put a comment on one of our Facebook pages or on YouTube as well. Greg Bach is in Waukesha, which is a good thing, because if he weren't, you couldn't hear me, because he's the one that actually gets this thing out over the airwaves. Mr. Bach, good morning. How are you?
I'm well, Pat. How are you doing today?
Frenetic. It's just been, remember yesterday I talked about feeling like a pinball machine?
Yeah.
We were just like bouncing back and forth, looking at the wires, looking at the Twitter, looking at the email, looking at the text messages, looking at the TV. And then it was Greg Bach who broke the news yesterday about Tim Walz being named the running mate to the Kamala Harris ticket. Yes, folks, I didn't have to do it. I could have just put my feet up. I worked way too hard and could have just said, Greg, darling, let me know when you know of something. So I'm glad your inside sources were all over that.
A big shout out to Luke Mathers for handing me the phone. I think it was 3 minutes before we were done with the show yesterday.
Basically, yes.
But the thing is, he handed me the phone, and the way Twitter works now is that it didn't show me the tweet right up in the middle.
Yeah.
The tweet was up top on the screen, and the picture I saw was a picture of Kamala Harris and Josh Shapiro. I'm like,
uh-oh.
You're saying Walz, I'm seeing Shapiro. What's going on here? And he points, I'm like, oh, there we go. And I'm like, it's Tim Walz.
Well, we did it, though. We got the news out there and then spent the day reacting to it, and we'll have more of that throughout the course of the day. But I will say again, there was already this extra burst of energy or enthusiasm or positivity, with Kamala Harris taking over the top spot on the ticket. Adding Tim Walz as the running mate, just put that in another gear. And the word that gets used a lot, I mean, people used hope a lot during, Barack Obama's first campaign. Joy. There was a lot of joy out there yesterday. Both Harris and Walz talked about that. Governing with a sense of joy, campaigning with a sense of joy, because, folks, I know that this may sound a little too Boy Scouty to some of you, but government and politics is actually supposed to be about public service. It's actually supposed to be about solving problems and helping your neighbor and making sure kids can learn and making sure kids can eat and making sure that, the roads are smooth and making sure that our air and our water are clean. And some people actually want to do that. And other people just want to be weird. So weird and so negative and so greedy or so gullible. And it's just such a nice change of pace to see a little joy put back into our politics. It's been way too long.
I don't disagree with you. I felt like when Joe Biden stepped down, there was an initial sense of like, oh God, what's going to happen? And then within 24 hours, I was walking around like, all right, I'm feeling really, really good. And then, that initial pop, it normalizes. We're like, all right, Kamala is the person.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be great. And then when Tim Walz was announced yesterday, I was like, America's dad is going to be the vice president.
Yes. And he has been. I mean, and by the way, not just in the all nice, aw shucks way. I mean, he got a couple of zingers in that, again, you would expect either your dad or your uncle. We're always talking about the drunk uncle or the crazy, nutball uncle. We forget that sometimes there's like the fun uncle who says the things that all the other adults go, Jim, and Jim goes, well, they're going to hear it on the school bus anyway, and I like that. I like that very much.
As soon as the weird uncle walks away, the cool uncle goes, Steve's weird. I know. Don't listen to him. It's fine. Here, just go. Here's a soda. Just have fun.
That's exactly what it is.
No one's trying to put fluoride into your water.
No. And we'll have a couple of clips from Tim Walz coming up in just a bit here. But let me start first by going back to the scene of today's rally in Eau Claire. And as I mentioned, our Up North News reporter, Selena Heller, stopped by the grounds as everything was getting set up. Bleachers were being put up. A lot of bleachers. They're expecting a pretty good turnout here. So folks in the Eau Claire area hearing us on 93.5 The Tap, you're going to want to get there, pretty early. I'm not saying it's going to be, since it's Country Jam, I'm not saying like Garth Brooks is going to be showing up, but it's also not going to be Pat Kreitlow on a guitar. So, plan
you heard it
accordingly.
here, folks. Garth Brooks will be in Eau Claire.
No. That's not what he said at all. And so here's Eau Claire Police Chief Matt Rokas talking to Selena a little bit about the security matters that are there, what their job is versus the Secret Service, the kind of the division of labor to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
With recent events, there are heightened concerns about tomorrow's events. We're working very hard with our partners, whether it be the Secret Service or other law enforcement agencies. There's a very good plan in place, and we're going to do our very best to make sure it's a safe event. The U.S. Secret Service is the lead agency for events like this. Their primary responsibility is protection of the dignitary who's visiting us. With both events being in the city of Eau Claire, our department has a large role in ensuring the safety of the visitor. Also the attendees that'll be coming out to see them speak as well. Our role and responsibility has to do with getting them to the site, whether it be coming into the airport, motorcade to the site security for the site itself, and then getting them, helping them on to their next stop, outside of Eau Claire.
And they'll be heading right to Michigan after this, if I'm not mistaken. They're actually doing 2 rallies today as part of a barnstorming of all of the swing states. And again, with the site being just off Highway 29 north of Eau Claire, I would expect a pretty healthy contingent of Minnesota folks coming over because they know there probably won't be much for rallies in Minnesota now that Walz is on the ticket. It's a pretty safe state. And so if you want to see a big campaign event with Kamala Harris, you're going to be coming out to this event in Eau Claire or something in the future. So expect a healthy turnout there. What they say, the arena in Philadelphia holds 10,000 people. And they figured there were 14,000 people there yesterday between the arena, standing room, and the overflow. Contrast that with a Donald Trump rally in that same building in June, with a truckload of empty seats. And I don't know that this will necessarily last. Again, you've got a bright, shiny new ticket that's out there. People want to see them. People want to hear them. But there's most definitely a different atmosphere out there. And, I, for one, welcome it. We've got 90 days now until the election. And they can't come fast enough. So let's just enjoy that part of it while it lasts. So again, more from the Philly rally and more about Republican reaction and Midwestern reaction coming up in just a bit. There's also a story on the wires about in Arizona, the first person to be convicted of signing a document as a fake elector, claiming that Donald Trump had won the 2020 election, when he did not. So we'll have some details on that as well. But at 6:17, let's go take a look at sports. And the Brewers had a rough time against Atlanta last week. Not so much last night. Willy Adames hit a 2-run homer. And then he hit another 2-run homer as the Brewers routed the Atlanta Braves 10-0. Adames went 4 for 5 with 4 RBIs. He's got 75 already on the season. William Contreras was 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs. And the Brewers altogether scored their 10 runs on 16 hits. Colin Ray dominated the Braves for 7 innings. He struck out a season-high 9 while allowing just 5 hits and 1 walk. Colin Ray has not given up a run in his last 3 road starts. The Brewers have now improved under Ray's 19 starts. His record is 10-3. The Brewers' record in Ray's 19 starts is 14-5. The guy is very clearly proving himself. Game 2 of the 3-game series is this evening. 6:20 first pitch. Freddie Peralta on the mound for the Brewers. Pregame at 5:45 on Civic Media stations in Richland Center, Racine Kenosha, Oshkosh, and Park Falls. And then tomorrow the series in Atlanta wraps up. First pitch tomorrow is 11:20 in the morning, our time, before the Brewers come home for a long homestand starting this coming weekend with Cincinnati. More about the new Harris Walz ticket coming up, but first, wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Wednesday morning, when you're here, you're up north, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. The only song I could think of with weird and weird in the title was Weird Science by Oingo Boingo. We're going full-blown 80s today on this one.
It's a good choice, a good song.
Well, and it's because the reactions from Republicans have just been on a whole different level of weird. I mean, one of the first tweets by the account MAGA War Room says, Tim Walz is a weird radical liberal. What could be weirder than signing a bill requiring schools to stock tampons in the boys' bathrooms, or weirder than signing legislation allowing minors to receive sex change operations? Neither of which is exactly true. But the larger point is, this is what you're choosing to focus on first. The hashtag that they got trending was hashtag tampon Tim.
Ugh.
Which, I'm sorry, that's what you're going for first? That's weird.
Also, you could have just gone with Timpon.
See, now that's why they needed you. They should have had you for this, but no, they didn't.
We talked about that yesterday. The first email that the Trumps that they said, it said Tim Walz hates you. Like that's their mood. That's what they're going to go with.
Where are you going to get that from anybody? Tim Walz hates nobody. Made that clear in his remarks that he wants to get back to a point where we do disagree with each other. We all disagree with each other from time to time. And try to do so without going, oh, yeah, I hate you. You're the worst.
Yeah.
So again, so they're trying to put the weird label on him, which again, if you can't come up with your own nickname for somebody, that's weird as well. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
It just is. Well, wait, you know who else recognized that? Not just Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who spoke at the rally, of course, in Philly and could not have been more gracious. But he was also completely on point. And when the crowd started chanting something and he wasn't quite clear, then he figured out what it was. Here's what he had to say.
So if I hear you right, and I think I do, you're chanting, he's a weirdo. Which means, man, I love you, Philly. Which means, if you're chanting, he's a weirdo, then you heard of my good friend and our next Vice President, Tim Walz. Because Tim Walz, in his beautiful Midwestern plain-spoken way, he summed up J.D. Vance the best. He's a weirdo.
There's just no, so again, give Walz credit. I couldn't make it out at first either. I laughed out loud when Shapiro's like, are you chanting he's a weirdo? I was just like, yep, that's Philly for you. God bless him.
That's the huge difference too between J.D. Vance and whether it's Josh Shapiro or Tim Walz, that that clip of J.D. Vance trying to talk to the audience and stumbling, and they start laughing up, I love you guys, and they're like, okay, just keep talking, where Josh is like, I love you guys, they're like, we love you too.
We love you too. Exactly. Kamala Harris knew of Tim Walz. They didn't work a lot closely together, but they knew each other, have a lot of respect for each other. And Kamala Harris gave her usual stump speech, but then started talking about, before introducing the Minnesota governor, the qualities that she saw in him. And I picked this one out in particular because of his record, not just as a father and a soldier and a teacher, but of a coach of a hapless football team and the difference that one good person can make.
He had a knack for using the game of football to teach life lessons. He saw the potential in kids who sometimes didn't even see it in themselves. Under those Friday night lights, Coach Walz motivated his players to believe they could achieve anything. And together, they defied the odds, hear this out, going from a winless record to the school's first ever state championship.
I should note that was a 3-year turnaround. They went 0-27 in 1996, and by 1999, 3 years later, they were state champions. So Walz is clearly a motivator in a positive sense, but he definitely knows, how to pick at not just the larger arguments of the campaign and the larger themes, but, some of the other stuff that shouldn't go without saying, as Walz notes, pointing out the record of Donald Trump.
He froze in the face of the COVID crisis. He drove our economy into the ground, and make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed.
So he got a roar out of the crowd on that one. He got an even larger roar when he made a comment about J.D. Vance and how he can't wait to debate him if he'll get off the couch. And the crowd was just all over that, which of course, led to, again, MAGA Twitter losing their minds about, oh, how dare he? How dare he? It's like, wait a minute. Do you guys listen to half of what you say out there? And so, yeah, he told a couch joke. But then he went on to mention that when it comes to the things that so much of the right-wing movement want to do are about restricting your freedoms. Your freedom to, have your kids read books, the freedom to be free of gun violence, the freedom to love whom you choose, the freedom, the liberty of having bodily autonomy. Tim Walz kind of summed all of it up in this way.
Some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
Boom. That's it. There's nothing wrong with having your own value system, with having your own, religious ideology. It's about the imposition on others of things that are not, frankly, in the mainstream of society, that Tim Walz and others are just finally, A, calling weird, and saying, B, mind your own business. That's all people really want is, again, government should be in the job of serving the people, not restricting the people based on somebody's religious ideology. This is not difficult. When we come back, we're going to talk to Melissa Baldauff in our climate check. Wondered if this was going to be a carbon copy of a week or two ago when we talked about the Kamala Harris climate record. Tim Walz doesn't just have a record of things he'd like to do, but things that got done in the Minnesota legislature on climate issues. And so Melissa's going to have that for us. Todd Allbaugh later from the site of today's Eau Claire rally for the Harris-Walz ticket. This is Up North News Radio, live from Lake Wissota. I'm Pat Reitlum.
From my heart and from my hands, why don't people understand my intentions?
Melissa, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, good. Of course, we've had a lot of fun with Governor Walz already, getting named as Kamala Harris's running mate. And we're gonna talk. Last week it was all about Kamala Harris and her climate record. Tim Walz is quite literally saying "Hold my beer," and has quite the enviable record himself. But let's go back a step. I just want to know your overall reaction. I mean, we've known for a week or two that he was being considered, but what are your thoughts now that he's the running mate?
Oh, I think what a great choice. Not only is Governor Walz somebody who is just a, fantastic communicator who is really relatable and, somebody that people, could fit in anywhere he goes, right? You can see him fitting in a Legion Hall, in a bar somewhere up north, um, you know,
And
getting
in a
coffee after
boardroom, right?
church, in
Yeah.
a boardroom, anywhere, right? He's someone who just seems like he could fit in anywhere, can chat with anybody, and at the same time, he's somebody who's getting a whole heck of a lot of good stuff done in Minnesota. With just a one seat majority in the legislature, he's been able to get an incredible amount of you know common sense policy passed. What Republicans now want to label this extreme progressive agenda, and if feeding kids is
Oh my gosh.
extreme progressivism, that's
Saving the
you know
planet and everything else. Yeah,
right.
that was a good reminder that the Minnesota legislature, Democrats had a one seat majority at times. And in President Biden's first 2 years in office, Democrats had just a 4 seat majority, something like that. And look at all that they got done. Look how much you can get done when you stop, kind of the backbiting and the sniping behind the scenes, said the guy who served in the legislature when there was just a little too much of that going around. Isn't it amazing what you can do when you all decide to work together?
Right. I think it's really impressive. It's really incredible what they've been able to accomplish in Minnesota. I mean, obviously I'd be remiss if I didn't point out, one of the things they haven't been able to accomplish, which is winning a Super Bowl.
Oh, of course. I mean,
But
has to be said.
we wish them well in their policy endeavors,
Yes,
and of course hope that we could get those nice policies passed here.
oh, what a contrast between what has passed in Minnesota and what has been going on here. Starting with the 2010 election of Scott Walker, and the state is still playing catch up. But as we've heard before, we're just going to keep chipping away at it. But let's look at that Minnesota record, because on climate issues, the feeling I get from doing a little reading on this is that Tim Walz has the perfect 1-2 punch here. First off, he's got a very good record on climate issues, but just as important, or more importantly, you could argue, he can communicate those things and not fall prey to some of the right wing talking points and everything else. It's one thing to know what you want to do, but you got to be able to help other people go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And that's the kind of communicator Tim Walz is.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's really kind of one of the introductions that so many people have gotten to Tim Walz recently is, you've seen kind of this branding of Donald Trump and JD Vance as weird. And I mean, for one, it's true. We saw this messaging come from Tim Walz. It's true. These are weird guys and they're talking about weird things. And one of the reasons I think it's so effective is, it's not saying that all the people who support them or vote for them or who have for them in the past are weird. A lot of these folks are just people who are looking for someone to help them out and, talk to them and explain to them what's going on and how they're going to be there for them. And I think Tim Walz has really tapped into that, and, he's effective, with that kind of messaging on so many issues. And really, one of those issues is climate change. He with his upbringing in, rural America and his, record as a veteran, as an educator, he has learned how to talk to folks all over the country about all kinds of different issues. And he has really, found a way to be incredibly skillful at talking about climate change in a way that uh, people can relate to, and that it resonates for them.
Well, and I think part of the reason for that is Walz is definitely one of those who does one of the things that we do on this segment, and that is that you not only talk about the problem and you not only talk about the threats, but you talk about not just even the solutions, but the economic benefit of the solutions and the economic threats. And look, for some people, they don't want that to be a dollars and cents thing that, it's like, look, we literally have to save the planet. And I get that. But if you're going to get solutions in place to, prevent further catastrophic damage, for some people, you have to frame it in economic terms. That's exactly what he did. And he rolled out a climate action framework, which was a 69-page climate plan with 6 overarching goals. It basically sounds like the antidote to Project 2025. Instead of 900 pages of terrible right-wing ideas, here are 69 pages of ideas that are good, not just for the land, the air, and the water, but for the economy and for people's lives. It sounds so simple, but Walz actually got it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've gotten quite a bit done over in Minnesota. In their 2023 legislative session, they passed 40 climate initiatives.
40.
What 40? That's incredible. To have made that much progress towards those big goals that they've set through their climate action plan. To set those big goals of reaching net zero emissions, by 2050, or excuse me, 100% clean energy by 2040, to increase the share of electric vehicles on their roads to 20% by 2030. They are really taking action. They are taking steps, making progress towards achieving those goals, because those are big, ambitious goals, and they're not things that you get to overnight. But they're taking the steps, and
Yeah.
they are doing things in cooperation with folks in agriculture, with folks in labor, with folks who work in our environmental organizations. They're really doing it in a way that is, in community, and that's why they're making progress.
Yeah, I mean, in a host of areas, he has increased funding for public transit, increased electric vehicle infrastructure projects, allocated $2 billion to projects that are similar to the Inflation Reduction Act, but from a state standpoint, for natural resources, for climate, for energy. There are incentives for schools to install solar power, rebates for heat pumps and electric stoves, rebates for the purchase of electric school buses and EVs. And did you notice nowhere in there did we get mired down in debates over science, or, if you want to call it hand wringing about the threat? It's just, here's some ideas. They make everything cleaner. They create jobs. We make them affordable. How about we get this done? And, it sounds, if it sounds too good to be true, it is just what happens when, instead of divided government, or instead of government, in the hands of, say, the far right, you actually put government in the hands of people that want to provide a service or solve problems. So the impression I get from it anyway.
Absolutely. This is, I think he really understands, that he didn't, cause these problems. Democrats didn't cause these problems. Republicans didn't cause these problems, right? These are problems that have been caused over years and years and years, but somebody's got to step up and fix them. And somebody's got to talk to people about how we're going to fix them and, offer some solutions that make sense to people. And the solutions that most often are making sense to people are the ones that are a good job that's putting food on their table and, a paycheck going into the bank account, right? So I think he understands that and has focused on really, those personal connections. It's not only, people, and not to suggest that people don't care about, the big picture. This is good for society. This is good for everyone. This is good for the environment, because I do believe that people care, but people are also concerned about their families and their personal situations. And I think we have to acknowledge that and recognize that that real concern that people have over their personal finances, their personal family situation, and let them, really get to be part of the solution by bringing those good jobs to them as part of the solution on climate.
There's a lot of talk about balance in any presidential ticket. And in this case, here's how you get it on climate: by having somebody who was a U.S. senator, somebody in Congress in the ticket, and then a state governor as well. Tim Walz is not necessarily going to go to the U.S. Capitol and, try to lobby Congress on something. That's something that a President Harris would work on. Whereas Governor Walz becomes Vice President Walz and now can talk to governors of both parties across the country and say, look, here's what we've done in Minnesota. Here's our numbers. You can get this done in your state. Dare I hope, Melissa, that he could be a force for some positive climate legislation in Wisconsin finally.
Absolutely. I think we should dare to hope that. I think that's, what we're seeing in this ticket is two people who have really, dedicated their lives and their careers to public service, and who deeply understand how good government works and why it's important. And that's not to say that someone who isn't as experienced couldn't be effective, because there are cases where they can, but really when it comes down to it, to me, experience matters, and trust, people being able to trust somebody and being able to recognize that they're going to do what they say, that really matters. And what we see in Vice President Harris, what we see in Governor Walz, are people who have a demonstrated record of serving the public, serving their communities in elected office, and running on saying that they're going to do something and then getting it done. It is a, promises made, promises kept from both of them. And that, I think, is incredibly important.
And so finally, the energy, pun intended, talking about climate, that Walz brings to the ticket, and of course the change with Vice President Harris at the top of the ticket. I mean, you talk to people who are active on climate and natural resources issues. Obviously, they were planning to work hard anyway on behalf of President Biden. Do you feel like they've got like maybe an extra spring in their step now when they see the two people at the top of this ticket?
I do see people excited, and I have to say too, I really I see young people incredibly excited about this ticket, and really, to borrow a phrase from my former boss, they are jazzed as hell about this. I have a 19-year-old daughter, and she and her friends are so excited to vote in this election. They're thrilled about Kamala Harris, and they had been talking for the past couple weeks about Tim Walz. They have seen him all over TikTok and Instagram, and really, really, really like him.
This was fun. Melissa Baldauff, thank you so much. Thank you. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, you too.
Today's history lesson is up next. You're Up North. Melissa's here.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Wait, if you're here, where are you
I
going
will
to
be.
be?
I will
where are
be
you gonna
hitting
be
the road
later?
soon.
Okay.
It's Melissa A-OK.
I am.
Hey, okay. Melissa Annette Olivia K.
Ooh,
A-O.
Wow.
See.
look at you, all on your acronyms.
Yep.
Greg, you're blurry today.
It's his
Why are you
Vaseline
blurry?
lens. He's like Carrie Lake. You know, he just likes to
Hold on. Let me see
have
if
that
let me see
soft
if
look.
that didn't help.
Just living in your fuzzy dream world over there. It's
That's
fine.
right. Yeah, get the heart music.
I don't know why that happens.
I'm like, yeah, what's it focusing on? So, anyway, here we go. Stepping up to the microphone now, the Kiki D to Greg Bach's Elton John. Here's Melissa K. Well, I mean, not singing, joining us for today's history lesson. Melissa K from locally grown radio in Wisconsin Rapids. Melissa, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's going to be one of those crazy days.
It is.
I like how you rightly point. Every so often, Greg's camera goes kablooey and goes completely out of focus. And
Your hands in focus.
his hands in focus, but it won't. Greg looks like he's got Vaseline all over the lens, like Carrie Lake in Arizona.
Oh, there
we
you
go.
are.
Extreme close up. But
Hi, Greg.
but now he's in
I've never
focus.
seen your eyes so clearly before.
I know.
Hi.
Neither is he.
That's awesome.
Folks,
if you're not watching us live on Facebook, you should.
Yeah. Anyway, on this day,
Even my camera was like, sit back down. I'll focus.
I know.
It is.
Look at that.
You fixed it.
Camera behaved. Good job. That song, "Don't Go Breaking My Heart," Elton John, Kiki D, was the #1 record this day in 1976. All right. On this day in 1965, the top spot on the charts had been the Rolling Stones' "I Can't Get No Satisfaction." Good classic rock song. What kind of a song would knock it off the top spot? Well, Herman's Hermits would with this.
I'm entering the eighth, I am. Entering the eighth, I am.
Can you just imagine the Rolling Stones going, really? This is what knocked us off?
I'm not a music critic, and I know that everyone has their own style and choices. But man, music really sucked back then sometimes.
Look at this. Melissa's dancing around to it, and you're saying it sucks.
Oh my God.
It's such a fun, happy song.
See? Look at that.
Henry VIII was a horrible person, Melissa K.
Yes, perhaps, but this song is kind of fun.
Yeah, see? You're such a bad person. We have to make silly songs about you when you're dead, so we can finally have some joy in our life. On this day in 1782, General George Washington ordered the creation of the Badge of Military Merit to honor soldiers wounded in battle, later renamed the Purple Heart. On this day in 1794, President George Washington invoked the Militia Act to suppress the Whiskey Rebellion in Western Pennsylvania. Such a difference between, when you're the general that everybody loves and you go into politics and half the people hate you.
That's how it works.
It's just a perfect lesson right there. All right, I want to play two versions of the same song here. First, this song was on the charts twice in 1954. I'll get to the one that was popular this day in 1954 in a minute. But a few months earlier in the springtime, the Chords got as high as #9 on the chart with this.
Life could be a dream. Life could be a dream. Do, 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 shaboom. Life could be a dream. If I could take you up in paradise.
Isn't that nice? It's just so rich, very
Soulful.
very melodic, soulful. And then a couple of months later, they give it to four of the whitest looking guys from Canada you could imagine, the Crew Cuts, and this is their version.
Been on ding dong,
Oh, God.
oh, life could be a dream.
I'm sorry, but this is it's like Eddie Murphy when he does the impressions in Beverly Hills Cop. You know, like, oh, did you put the banana in the tailpipe? You know?
The only redeeming thing about this song is it reminds me of the movie Clue. So
Oh, I was going to say the chords version reminds me of the movie Cars.
there you go.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of when I sang this with 4 very white girls in Tama on stage in 2001 when we did the Tapetas.
I would like to hear that one.
Well, we
Please let
reprised
there be
it in
video.
2011.
The late B.J. Thomas was born this day in 1942, 82 years ago. Had a couple of hits. There was the one with the really long title, Hey, Won't You Play Another Somebody Done Somebody Wrong song? But also this one, which was made popular in a Hollywood classic.
Raindrops are falling on my head. And just
You can't
like
help
the
but just bop your head a little
guys
bit. Like,
before his
That was in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, where it really became popular. Actress Charlize Theron is 49 years old today.
Wow.
The number one song this day in 1971, so this was long before they became a disco hit, was from the Bee Gees.
everyone, make like Robin Gibbs and put your fingers on your ears.
Now, this one more birthday here. Bruce Dickinson is 65 today, born from England, and took over as lead vocalist for Iron Maiden. And I got a question after this.
Oh, I'll answer it.
Now I am cold, but a ghost lives in my veins.
So
God, I love Iron Maiden.
I forget, and I haven't. I could have looked it up, but I didn't. In the infamous Cowbell episode of Saturday Night Live,
Yeah.
Christopher Walken, is that the name of the character he plays? Is Bruce Dickinson, or is it something else?
Oh, that I do not know. I'm sorry. I thought you were going to ask me an Iron Maiden question.
Oh yes. In fact, I do have an Iron Maiden question. I thought of that hearing this tune yesterday.
Yeah.
What's the difference between Iron Maiden and Metallica? Aren't they the same group?
Whoa. You got the death look.
As
from
Hart would
Drake.
sing, if looks could kill, you'd be lying on the floor. You'd be begging me, please, please, baby, don't hurt me no more. That was a look. That was a look. I couldn't have sounded any more like a guy that just listens to yacht rock than in asking that question, could I?
His name was Gene. His name was. Oh yeah, he plays. His name is Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah.
It is Bruce Dickinson.
Fictional
It's
music
so
producer
weird.
Bruce Dickinson.
Oh my goodness! See,
And Farrell was Gene Frankel.
I put my pants on one leg at a time, and every time I do it, I make gold records.
from Rob in Tigerton. Good morning, Melissa, who does a very excellent job with her news coverage.
Oh, thank you, Rob.
Well, I think he was trying to say not you're singing so much. He was saying your news coverage. No, I'm just kidding. I'm teasing.
You've never heard me sing, Pat.
I haven't. That's what I'm saying. I'd like to hear what you did with Shaboom or something else.
I sang alto.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like a melody.
All right. Today is National Lighthouse Day, National Raspberries and Cream Day. I thought there was shouldn't we do strawberries and cream? Anyway, National Purple Heart Day when we thank and salute those who served. Melissa Kay, thank you so much. You can catch her on locally grown radio in Wisconsin Rapids. Always a treat, Melissa. Have a wonderful day.
FM 1320 AM.
There you go. Got to
Get
get that in.
I'll see you later.
Yes, you will. Big rally in Eau Claire coming up here. More from Up North News Radio after this. Is this Metallica?
Oh, Patrick Jerome, right low.
Pat, am I calling you? Because Todd never gave me his phone number.
You can call me. Yes.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Pat, is Todd coming at the end of the show, or is he coming like
Yes.
earlier?
Yes. He'll be.
Okay.
No, he'll be in at the end of the show when he.
All right, I'm gonna pick some music for him then.
Oh yes, yes, please
Yep,
do.
I do have your number. All right.
Okay.
See you
Sounds
later.
good. Yep. Safe
Bye.
travels. Bye.
Thanks.
Melissa Annie Oakley K. See, A-OK. I got it in there.
Boom.
Okay, I'll go now. Bye. Hey, Brittany.
Morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah.
Let's see. I can't find everything I need. Let's see. Mhm. Here we go.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Reitlow.
All right, good morning. Welcome back to Up North News Radio, unabashedly Wisconsin, brought to you by Courier Newsroom, carried by our friends here on the Civic Media Radio Network. It is 7:06. It's Wednesday morning, August 7th. Nice to have you along. Coming up this hour, we'll check in with Todd Allbaugh. He's on his way to the site in Eau Claire, where Vice President Kamala Harris and her new running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, will be holding a rally later around midday or so before they head off to do another one in Michigan. We've got our homeroom segment this week has Sachin Chetta, who is going to be talking about threats to public education, kind of a back-to-school checklist of things to watch out for as we get set to start the new school year. And we'll talk about some of the more, shall we say, Midwestern reactions to Tim Walz being added to the ticket as running mate. But first, it's another lovely day up here up north. Meteorologist Brittany Merlot is here to tell us what we've got to expect for today and for the rest of the work week here. Brittany, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day. Once again, temperatures this morning ranging from about 43 degrees to 68 across the state. We are looking at some thick fog off towards Black River Falls and Menominee. That will all burn off within this hour. We're going to have a beautiful day today with a high pressure system in place. A lot of sunshine on tap for us. Highs climbing from the mid 70s north to the upper 70s further south. And of course, we are looking at a cold front that is going to be moving through this evening. So that's going to spark up some chances for some scattered showers throughout probably after 4 o'clock into the northwestern parts of the state. And that is going to be moving throughout Wisconsin overnight and into early tomorrow morning. So southern parts could be waking up to a few scattered showers tomorrow morning. This is not a heavy event. Nothing will be severe. And then after that, temperatures still crisp, still cool as we go through the rest of the week and even into the weekend.
Even into the weekend, but here's my beef though.
Yeah.
Once again, there is this slight chance of that a shower could pop up somewhere where you are, which again, for somebody who has already had his Jeep flooded once by an unexpected pop-up shower, it's like I only drop that top now when it's like the 0%. We haven't had a 0% chance of rain over, say, a 3-day period in a very long time, but there's just always the chance that we're going to get some rain out there.
I agree with you. It's like every few days it's got to come once again. So
Yep.
I get it. But I will say Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I think you have a good shot if you could take that top off.
All right. I hope. From Rob, good morning from Tigerton. It's sunny and 53. Yesterday was a perfect weather day, mowing lawns, 3 jobs in Wittenberg, 2 in Clintonville. Yesterday, you had a meatball sandwich at the Quick Trip in Clintonville. It was an awesome, enjoyable, beautiful day with Brittany back in the weather chair and has just gotten better and the humidity is gone. Rob, I did not know they had meatball sandwiches at Quick Trip. This changes everything.
Oh,
Right?
yes, they do.
As
Their
part of
their
nationals.
breakfast is unparalleled too.
Oh, yes. I mean, the sausage, egg, and cheese croissant. Yes.
Western omelet.
The hash browns, sign me up. But a meatball sandwich, if this is dangerous, if true.
Rob, stay hydrated.
Yeah, and Rob,
stay hydrated.
yes, please do. All right, Brittany, have a wonderful day.
You too. Thanks.
All right, we'll see you. There has been a lot said about just how Midwestern is this Tim Walz fella. And I don't have any kind of exhaustive list here, and I don't know if you've seen much of any, Greg, but there's one here that says, Tim Walz is the kind of guy that slaps his thigh, stands up and says, well, when it's time for the guests to get going. Tim Walz 10,000% stands at his doorstep when it's raining and says, we needed this. What's the one that we had yesterday where he says, I made good time.
Yep.
And wherever he's driving, he made on time.
Oh, yeah.
I saw an interview with Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota on TV yesterday, and somebody else heard it and caught this and said, if I just heard correctly on TV, Amy Klobuchar just said her mother-in-law gave the Walz family a chicken Parmesan bake when their baby son was born. These are absolutely violent levels of Midwestern.
He's the kind of guy who, when his neighbor across the street's doing some work, he just yells across, "Hey, you need a hand?
Mm-hmm.
Need a hand? I got some tools."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody
tweeted, they said, sure, Walz can and Vance can debate, or they can just meet privately. Vance can open up about how he's not sure where he went down the dark path. Then Walz will give him a hug, assure him everything is okay, and everyone makes mistakes, and he'll drop out of the race.
I could totally see that. I mean, that's the kind of guy that Tim Walz is. Tony from Ashland going, is this the show I saw on TikTok talking about Governor Walz taking a road trip? Yes, Tony, that's us. So, we got somebody at Civic Media who makes a TikTok out of something you and I do every day.
Yeah.
Somebody does that.
We don't know who.
We don't know who.
I think his name is Dylan or something.
Yeah, it's a mystery. But yeah, yesterday's topic was how Midwestern the governor would be driving out to Pennsylvania. Another one says Governor Walz has shown further violent tendencies and extremism by offering lemon bars and scotcheroos on the opening day of the Minnesota legislative session. He is clearly a madman.
He's gonna walk up to the Secret Service and kick the tires and go, "We got chains for these wheels? It's gonna get cold."
Oh, that reminds me. Oh, this is such a good one. I'm going to send you a link. I don't know if we can get this on in time, but it is a video clip of Tim Walz from 2018. I mean, he's got some super funny, typical dad videos that he puts up. He's got one with his daughter at the Minnesota State Fair, which is amazing. One where he's climbing a ladder to get a dog out of the dog had locked itself in the bathroom or something like that. And here's one from 2018 where he's giving a pro tip on fixing your car. Here's Tim Walz.
Hey everybody, Tim here. 11 days till the election, but it's my pro tip of the day out on the road. I got to show you this. This right here is the headlight harness on a 2014 Ford Edge. Ford, this is unacceptable. It burned out hot on the connector. So for $7.99 at Napa Auto Parts here in the city, you can replace this. Just clip off the back, use some shrink wrap connectors on there, tape it back together and put it back in. It's about a 5-minute fix and you're back on the road safe and sound. So pro tip of the day. Second one is get out and vote for One Minnesota. Get out and let's take this state in a direction we know it needs to go. Go vote.
That's so perfect. Just perfect right there. I mean,
I want to be his friend.
Now, I have to say, I was surprised. I knew that Kamala Harris was roughly the same age as me. I just turned 60. She's about to turn 60.
Yeah.
Tim Walz just turned 60.
Yeah.
We're all in that same ballpark, but he's clearly the kid that grew up on the farm and could tell you how to replace the headlight harness on a Ford Edge. Whereas that is not in my skill set. But as people went on to say, tune in right now for a huge policy unveil from Vice President Walz. Walz steps to the microphone. 50-pound bags of deer corn are $9.99 at Reed's Family Outdoor Outfitters. Get out there and buy some deer corn.
But you know what? We're listening to these we're listening to these clips. We're talking about him.
Mm-hmm.
It just goes to show and prove the energy that he's bringing, along with the energy that Kamala is bringing, and it also shows that people can just be good and be in government. I mean, I don't claim to know either one of them well enough to know if there are skeletons or anything like that. But what I do know is that it is apparent that both of these people deeply love this country and they want to do good by us. And maybe I'm naive or gullible, but I'm sorry, but it just feels good.
It does feel good. That's exactly what it is. Tony chiming in on YouTube. I love everything about this. And why wouldn't you, if you're just being yourself, if you're just, and if that genuine self is a good person, who wants to help other people. And yeah, did Tim Walz tell a couch joke about J.D. Vance? Yeah, he did, because he can do that too. He gives as good as he gets, but he is also the one that in his speech talked about that we're going to have some disagreements, but let's get back to the point where we can have those disagreements like all the rest of us have to do in our regular lives, and do so in a rational way, one that doesn't ratchet up talk of political violence or have to cheat in elections or anything like that. We want to have some fun again. And I just recall, and I haven't mentioned this one for a while here, but part of what got me started in, being a political junkie, a news junkie, thinking about public service, was an internship that I did with my legislator back in the day in St. Paul. And what I saw in the Capitol back in, this was 1978, 79. And what I saw were regular folks, because you didn't have all the big money in politics yet like you do now. You saw a bunch of regular folks just trying to do their best. It was basically, it was almost on par with city council or school board in terms of, I just want to go do some good things for my hometown, and I'll go do it in the legislature. And I still saw some of those people 15 years ago when I was in the legislature. And there are still some people in there today. But unfortunately, the ratio of good people to, again, the radio-friendly word will be jerks. The ratio of good people to jerks is out of whack. And so anytime we can lift up somebody who, like in Tim Walz's case, is bringing, here's the new phrase, big dad energy. Anybody who's bringing big dad energy to our politics, I welcome that. And you know what? I would love to get somebody affable and relatable on the Republican side running as well. I don't know who people think might be the best example of that, but if it's somebody who, again, really wants to serve, you can tell they're a loving parent and they're just real.
Yeah.
Who is that? Who is that? And not for this year. This year is pretty well set. Again, we think so. But as you look ahead to 2028, who could be that person on the Republican side? Who's bringing the big dad energy or the big mom energy in the future? I genuinely want to know who we think these folks are, because then we'll watch. We'll see how we've had people before who they look genuine coming up, and then next thing you know, they want to just give tax breaks to the very wealthy and not do anything else. So 855-75-CIVIC would be the number to call or text, and give us a call or a text. Tell us who's bringing the big dad energy on the Republican side in the future. We'll unpack some more of the news, and then Sachin Chedda joins us at the bottom of the hour for our homeroom segment, and then Todd Allbaugh from the rally site in Eau Claire, where Governor Walz and Vice President Kamala Harris will be appearing a little later today. Wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Wednesday morning, when you're here, you're up north, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Check it out if I wanna take a guy home with me tonight. It's none of your business. And if she wanna be a freak and tell it on a weekend.
It's not like Tim Walz had salt and pepper up on the stage there, but he said in so many words, we need to get back to that place where people get to live their lives. And we'll play that for you in just a second. If you missed it in the last hour in our climate check segment, we had talked a couple of weeks back about the climate record for Kamala Harris. It's pretty impressive. Tim Walz, even more impressive. And if you missed that show, what you can do is head over to civicmedia.us, and you can not only see the stations that are part of the Civic Media Network, but you can see pages for each individual show. And on each of those show pages, you can click on any particular hour and listen back to it. Or you can just subscribe as a podcast and get all of it. So head over to civicmedia.us to hear more about that. Speaking of climate, that takes us over to the Up North News daily newsletter, where summers are hot. Summers have been getting hotter. There have been more storms, more intense storms. Every year, about 1,300 Americans die from exposure to extreme heat. It is the country's #1 weather-related cause of death. And the number of 90-degree days in Wisconsin is expected to grow rapidly over the coming years. You can learn the details in the newsletter there. And also a link to a new op-ed on our website, UpNorthNewsWI.com, where it's really about PFAS chemicals, and it's really past time for Republicans in the legislature to put people in front of polluters, put them above polluters, stop serving the interests of corporations who have contaminated our water, and get back to doing their jobs of making sure that we have clean water and clean air. That's all in our daily newsletter. Sign up for it over at UpNorthNewsWI.com. Willie Adames hit a pair of 2-run homers as the Brewers routed the Atlanta Braves 10-0 last night. Adames was 4 for 5. Contreras was 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs of his own. The Brewers scored 10 runs on 16 hits. Colin Ray was dominant over 7 innings. He struck out a season-high 9, allowing 5 hits and 1 walk. The Brewers are now 14-5 in Colin Ray's 19 starts this season. Freddie Peralta will get the start tonight. 6:20 first pitch, 5:45 the pregame on stations in Richland Center, Racine, Kenosha, Oshkosh, and Park Falls that are part of the Civic Media Radio Network. And tomorrow they wrap up that series in Atlanta with a game where the first pitch is at 11:20 in the morning. So a little lunchtime with the Brewers tomorrow as they wrap up their road trip and start a long homestand on Friday. All right, so Governor Tim Walz was introduced at this rally in Philadelphia yesterday and had quite a bit to say, but the big nugget that I took out of it, or one of them, I guess I should say, is this notion of freedom and, or liberty, however you want to put it. And the freedom that comes with, being able to live your life on your terms. If you're, doing that and not hurting your neighbor, the freedom to vote, to not have your vote impinged, the freedom to be free of gun violence, the freedom to love somebody, the freedom of your body when it comes to your health. This was the way that the governor put it in his remarks yesterday.
Some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
I don't know why that's so hard for some folks in politics to understand, but that was put very, very succinctly. Tim Walz is good at making things succinct. Mm-hmm. He's weird, feed kids, simple things like this. He can carry that kind of a message. And so I will expect to hear more of the same in Eau Claire later today. And Todd Allbaugh is going to tell us more about what's at the site a little later on this hour.
Pat, you asked earlier before about who's the shining light on the GOP who has this similar vibe that can bring the big dad energy. And one name that came up to me was Adam Kinzinger. Unfortunately, he's no longer in office because of everything that's going on. He didn't like the way the GOP was going and was a vocal critic of the new direction. But my wonder is will someone be able to bring the big parent energy to the GOP main stage and cut through what's going on right now? Because you could have someone like a Tim Walz who has the heart, the love, the GOP conservative values. And then I feel like someone who brings that and says, but we got to work together. We got to be able to agree without being disagreeable or disagree with, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And people are just like, Rhino, get off the stage. Yeah. You're just, like who can either tamp that rhetoric down or help dissipate it where we can get back to a place of getting along.
Yeah. And he can do that. And now we're going to make a pivot to the really serious on this. My day ended yesterday, as it often ends, doom scrolling on my phone and looking to see what kinds of things, might want to bring up on the show. And I didn't know that there would ever be a proper place to bring this up. But the last thing I watched was a short little video that a woman made on Twitter. And that was it. I had to put the phone down because I was done for the night. It was when she talked about what Tim Walz means to her and so many others. Tim Walz is now the stand-in for the dad they lost to Fox News or to Trumpism and MAGA world, the dads who kick their own children out of the house when there's something they don't agree with their lifestyle, their career choice, whatever it is about their identity. People have lost a lot of dads that way, and Tim Walz is what, I don't know what the actual statistic is, but Tim Walz is what the other 9 out of 10 dads aren't, in the case of all these folks who agreed with kind of a post. He's a farmer. He's very practical. Let's solve things. He joined the military. He served his country. He served in public service. He was a teacher. He's been a football coach. He's been affable. When he met one of his students wanted to start an LGBTQ chapter in their high school. And he agreed to be the advisor because that was going to send a message. If the football coach is the sponsor of this group, nobody's going to be doing any bullying of any kids that look to be a part of that. And so when we make the jokes about, Tim Walz is now America's dad and things like that, it actually does connect to a lot of folks. And maybe it wasn't a dad, maybe it was a grandpa, maybe it was an uncle, whatever the case may be. But you see all the qualities that were in their dad. Their dad was maybe very mechanical. Maybe their dad played football or whatever the case may be. But somewhere along the line took this dark turn and stopped caring so much and started far too many conversations with, I'm not a racist, but, which the answer is always, shh, stop right there. But then, of course, they never do. So Tim Walz can be that stand-in, and maybe, depending on how the election goes, can be that stand-in for years to come. We are going to talk about our homeroom segment with Sachin Chetta coming up in just a bit on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow.
Who are you to judge? There's only one true judge, and that's God. So chill and let my father do his job.
Hey, how are you?
Good. My computer Wi-Fi is being a little funky, so I'm on my phone.
That's all right. Well, as long as we can see and hear you, and now suddenly I can't see you for some reason, so might be a Wi-Fi there. There you are. You're back again.
Yeah, sorry, I was just fixing my headphone. I don't know what my background looks like here.
Oh, you're looking fine.
Blur that.
Here. Let's see.
Okay.
So is it executive director at DPI?
Yeah, that's the title.
Okay.
Hey, Sachin, how you doing, bud?
Good morning, man. How are you?
Doing well.
All right. There we go. Okay, let's bring that up. Yep. Oh yeah, all looks good there. So you are ready to rock and roll. All right, we got 4 minutes left in this break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick you back in the waiting room so you can make all the noise you want, and then I'll come get you at the end of the break, and we'll get this puppy rolling.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
All
Is
right.
Greg going to tell me jokes while I'm waiting? I really would like that.
I would hope so, but Greg, well, when Greg's screen goes dark, it means he's getting a cup of coffee, and yeah, that's a euphemism. So we'll see.
Stay off the couch, Greg. Stay off the couch.
Oh God, I'll see you in a bit. All right, we're going to get going in 10 seconds here. Welcome to our homeroom segment where we talk about the benefits of and the threats to public education in Wisconsin. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll talk to Todd Allbaugh in Eau Claire for the Harris Walz rally that's going to be happening later today. But first, let's talk a bit about schools and what I guess you'd call a back-to-school checklist. Not so much for the school supplies and not so much for the things that teachers need to get their classrooms ready, but more a checklist of the things that one should look out for when it comes to weakening our public education system. And so that's my take on it. But somebody who looks at it more from an advocacy standpoint would be the executive director of the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, Sachin Chedda. Sachin, hello. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pat. Thanks so much for having me.
Nice to have you here. Let's start with your role first, because I know folks are familiar with the state superintendent, Jill Underly. As an executive director, tell us more about some of your duties for DPI.
So I'm just one of the senior leaders in the organization supporting the superintendent and her vision for a stronger public education system for every family in Wisconsin. My role is to oversee things like communications, the legal department, our policy and budget and research team, and help the deputy superintendent run the agency. So that's my role.
And I think it's a really good role for you, because one of the things that we've learned about, Dr. Underly in her role, and again, this is not passing judgment on anybody else who came before, up or down, but that she, in her own right, has no shyness, does not shy away a bit from her advocacy for education. And I don't believe there's a shy bone in your body either in all the years I've known you.
Well, I appreciate that, Pat. Look, she comes to work every day believing that we need to have an education system that serves every child every day with a quality public education, making sure that kids are prepared to lead exciting and fulfilled lives, however they measure productivity. We need to make sure every kid knows how to read so that they can read to learn for their whole lives. And that's what we're about at the Department of Public Instruction. And frankly, we're working with every type of school that we need to under Wisconsin law, whether that's public schools, charter schools, private schools, to help improve education for every student in Wisconsin.
And one of the big topics on education quality these days has surrounded something known as Act 20, which was a law that was passed by the legislature. And now there's a disagreement over funding it. We've covered this in one or two prior segments about, ways to improve reading and literacy. And like so many other things in education, when you talk about curriculum, nobody's saying that there's any one silver bullet, but certainly you need to have a good evaluation process on, what types of curriculum work well, which have not been shown to work well. And then you get into all the funding that's behind all of this. Where do Wisconsin schools stand at the start of the school year when it comes to Act 20? Is this now a mandate to change or to evaluate reading programs, and the legislature essentially isn't funding that, and we have an unfunded mandate, right? Or am I not describing that correctly?
Yeah, I think that's right. Look, so if people aren't familiar, Act 20 is a law that was passed by the legislature, signed into law by Governor Evers. DPI worked extensively with the legislature to try to improve this legislation. And it comes from a place, look, I'm a progressive. It comes from a place where we need to put the science first, right? We've tried quite a few different things in reading, but the data tells us that not enough kids are reading at grade level leading into third grade, and that leads to kids getting to graduation without the literacy skills that they need, right? And so leaving the ideology aside, that's the progressive way, making sure we follow the science. And what the science tells us is that there are certain ways of teaching reading that work better than other ways, right? That we need to make sure that more kids know how to read. So everyone got together. There was a bipartisan agreement to change the way that we teach reading, to impose new curriculum, to provide new training for teachers, to make sure those teachers were coached, to provide tutoring to students. It was a pretty comprehensive plan, not fully funded enough. They put $50 million behind that program in this biennium. But this is where the Republican legislature always chooses to play politics instead of just doing the right thing. They want to make schools political battlegrounds. And so what has happened is, out of the $50 million that they passed into law, the governor signed into law, the Joint Finance Committee has released about $300,000 of it. So they've released 1.5% of the funding that they've allocated. We're now less than 4 weeks from the start of school. And, you've got to train these teachers on these new curricula. You have to implement these new curricula. The schools have to buy these new curricula, right? They have to buy materials. There's a lot of work that goes into this. It's not something that you can just snap your finger and say this is done. And because the legislature has chosen to play politics, they're locked in a dispute with the governor over the most arcane of what is subject to a partial veto and what is not subject to a partial veto. And honestly, I don't have much of a dog in that fight. They can fight with the governor as much as they want about what his veto authority should be. In the meantime, what they shouldn't do is leave schools and teachers and kids and families behind, which is what they're doing by not releasing any of this funding. And again, they're prioritizing the political fight over implementing the law that they agreed was necessary to improve public education in Wisconsin. And it's really disappointing that we have a legislature that always chooses politics over doing the right thing, even when we have bipartisan agreement about what doing the right thing means.
And look, if you're going to talk about education, and we talk about civics education a lot, folks understand how a veto works, and we understand how a veto override works. And if you have the votes to override a governor's veto, then do it. If you don't have the votes to override a veto, it's the law. Follow the law, it seems. But somehow there's this new process where the Joint Finance Committee says, well, no, we're going to insert ourselves and we're not going to release the money, even though it's already been allocated. And so that in a nutshell is, the challenge that our educators are facing right now. There was a new mental health survey, I guess you'd call it, the 2023 Wisconsin Youth Risk Behavior Survey. Right. Talking about the youth mental health crisis as we go into the school year right now, from some of the reporting that's been done, it is still quite a challenge for myriad reasons, but there is still such a challenge to help provide young people with sense of security and of comfort and of belonging. When the folks at DPI took a look at that, what kind of reaction and what kind of action points can be made, from a school standpoint, not so much at parenting, but at school, what was your takeaway from that?
Yeah, I mean, so this was a report that we released just last week. Superintendent Underly had a press conference along with mental health advocates and mental health providers, just noting that we have a tremendous crisis in the mental health of our kids who are in school. The data tells us that way too many children are struggling. They're struggling with their emotional health. They're struggling with their mental health. They're struggling with feeling supported in the work that they're doing. Not everyone can just buckle down and just focus and do the things. We need to support the whole human. And schools are finding that, especially coming out of the pandemic, we're really struggling with kids feeling connected. Social media is social media has a ton of value. You and I are on social media, but it also has a downside in terms of making some kids feel isolated, some kids feel bullied, etc. And so we need to provide children with support. This is about there's the old argument about, are we supporting kids just until the moment of birth, or are we supporting them all the way into adulthood? It's not about imposing judgment. It's about making sure kids feel supported. And so whether that's providing mental health resources, whether that's counselors or social workers or school psychologists, whether it's making sure that there are policies and tools in place to help kids navigate these circumstances. Look, I think it's a big deal that kids have too easy access to guns. That's a real challenge in our state. So I think what we have said is that we have to treat this crisis like the crisis that it is. We have to impose real policies and make changes in the way that we do business. We have to make the investments that are necessary to support kids, because at the end of the day, if we're not supporting kids, we're not supporting the future of our society. We're not supporting our country. We're not being patriots. We're not supporting democracy. We really have to put the children first, and that's all what we're asking for, is to recognize the crisis that kids are in, that too many kids are really struggling every day. And so if you're interested in learning more about the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, please just Google that. Take a look at the news stories. There's a bunch of data on our website at dpi.wi.gov, and learn more about how we can support kids.
And one of the things that could have addressed that more thoroughly was through the state budget. DPI had requested about $80 million to go toward mental health issues, staffing, etc. The Republican-controlled legislature cut a lot of that money out of the budget request. Governor Evers restored some of it, $30 million of it, through the American Rescue Plan. But again, there's still that shortfall. But Dr. Underly, to her great credit, notes that there's also things that don't cost any money to create a sense of belonging, to establish, an environment that is safe and supportive, letting kids know how much they matter. But Sachin, that's very tough to do when instead the environment is, let's ban books. Let's talk about, bathrooms and things rather than the quality of education and the mental health of our kids. There's still too many political distractions to be helpful to kids and the real challenges that they face every day.
Yeah, I mean, let me say two quick things. One is there's absolutely a challenge that LGBTQ kids are feeling this pain much more than other kids, right? And that's because they're getting attacked. Their very sense of inclusion in our society, their sense of belonging in these schools, they're being attacked for who they are, for what they feel inside, whether it's about their gender identity or it's about who they're attracted to. We all know that adolescents and teenagers, have crushes and feel these sorts of things, and we need to make sure that kids feel supported. What's happened is that there's the right-wing agenda has been to make every place a political battlefield, right? They don't want just the floor of Congress or the floor of the legislature to be a political battlefield. They want our neighborhoods to be battlefields. They want our bedrooms to be battlefields. They want our schools to be battlefields. And my view is, look, it's what I said earlier, every child, every day. Let's just support every kid. Let's just make every kid feel included. Let's make every kid feel that they belong. Let's make sure every kid has the resources that they need to succeed. And then we're not paying the downstream costs. We're not paying the downstream costs because kids are hurting themselves or others. We're not paying the downstream costs because people aren't able to function in society, get a job, have a fulfilling career. It's just about being smart, right? And some of this is not ideological. It's very much just being smart, just deciding that we should set politics aside and do the right thing for every kid and make every kid feel included and like they belong. And it's really that simple. Just stop making schools political battlefields.
And yet we have in this year's campaign, most everybody by now has heard of Project 2025, which was put together by all sorts of conservative and far right organizations touching every aspect of life. And so I'm sure that I can get an answer from you about the things in Project 2025 that if implemented would have a direct impact on the quality of education in Wisconsin. When people ask you about Project 2025, what immediately comes to mind for you?
Look, the first thing that I say is they want to eliminate the Department of Education. And I just like that sounds like a great talking point, right? Like, well, let's get rid of government bureaucracy. But at the end of the day, we got to remember that half of the schools in the country rely on Title I funding that comes to the Department of Education to support the needs of kids who come from underprivileged backgrounds, who have lower income backgrounds. Schools across Wisconsin, in rural communities, suburban communities, urban communities, it doesn't matter where you are, schools need that funding in order to function. It pays for school bus drivers, it pays for cafeteria workers, it pays for teachers in the classroom, it pays for librarians, it pays for soccer coaches, it pays for the things that people believe to have a strong public education system. And so you can't just eliminate the Department of Education and say that there's not going to be any impact when you have a program like Title I that impacts half the schools in the country, just as one example. The reality is that we don't want, and families across the political spectrum don't want schools to be political battlefields, right? It is Republican parents that are speaking up as loud as any other kinds of parents against making book bans the primary interest of right-wing school boards, right? What we want school boards to focus on is how can we make education better for every kid? How can we build great school buildings? How can we hire the best teachers? How can we make sure that kids succeed, whether they're going to college or going into a trade, going to technical college, starting their career at a job, whatever they're doing. And I think what people are sick of is they're sick of the politics entering our school buildings, right? They just want to know that we're going to focus on what's right. And so that one example in Project 2025 of just throwing out this talking point that really has this incredible downstream impact on every community in Wisconsin, I think that's the kind of thing that we can't just be so blasé about these things, and we can't just act like politics doesn't affect our daily lives. It really does, and we need to do better for our kids.
Sachin Chetta, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. Great to catch up with you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me, Pat. We'll see you soon.
You bet. And when we come back, Todd Allbaugh is at the site of the Harris Walz rally in Eau Claire. We'll touch base with him next. You're Up North. All right. We are clear. Sachin, thank you very much.
Thanks again. And let's talk soon about getting Dr. Underly scheduled for back to school.
It's the earliest, well, if she can do it live, the earliest Wednesday that she's available, we will clear the decks.
Okay. I really appreciate it. Greg, it's great to see you. I hope things are well.
Thanks, buddy. Good to see you too.
All right. We'll talk to you guys.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Mr. Allbaugh, are you there?
Well, Mr. Kreitlow, how are you?
You're in a dark, dark room someplace.
You can't see me?
Nope, can't see at all. I could at the very
What the
beginning.
heck?
There you go. There. Welcome back.
Oh, all right, all right. Well, thank you.
All right. Are you on site? All right, here we go. 10 seconds. What did you find for us?
More Iron Maiden or Metallica, as you call it.
Well, which is it? Is it Iron Maiden or Metallica? I don't know.
Well, it has to do with the fact that it's Bruce Dickinson's birthday. It's Iron Maiden.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. All right. Todd Allbaugh's on the road here, and I know that he's in a part of Eau Claire not well known for its great cell reception. So hopefully this will work out. Tony writes in on YouTube, the over-under is 2.5 couches in Todd's video today, and Tony is taking the over. Todd is approaching or at the site of the Harris Walz rally. Mr. Allbaugh, good morning. How are you? Yep, that's the reception.
That's what we've.
That's the reception I'm talking about. Todd, you want to try again? Hello. Nope. For those of us watching on, you know what? Go ahead and turn your camera off on your phone, and we'll see if that if that helps out. So.
All right, hang on.
There we go. Okay. There. Hey, I hear you much better.
There, is that? Can you hear me now better?
I hear you crystal clear.
Really? Is that better?
How are you? Are you
well,
hearing?
I'm all right. I could see and hear you guys just fine.
Okay. Well,
But
good. Then,
I don't know what's
then
going
you
on.
just go ahead and tell us where you are and what you're expecting today.
Well, visual this. It's a beautiful late summer or midsummer day here in the fields of the Chippewa Valley. The soybeans look great. The alfalfa is fantastic, by the way, with all the rain up here. It's a pretty blue sky, some high, serious clouds overhead. And as Les Nespin once said on WKRP in Cincinnati, the crowd seems curious but well behaved. So that's the picture I'm setting here in the Chippewa Valley.
Oh man, are you already seeing a healthy turnout of folks waiting to get into the site on the north side of Eau Claire?
There is currently no waiting line. The general public parking lot, I would say there's 100-ish cars already in the general parking area. I am in the queue, as they say, with the media, waiting to get into the media parking lot here, which opens up in about an hour. So I'm going to have about an hour here to just chill and take in the scene. And but yeah, lots of law enforcement, as you would expect of a visit this type. Lots of media types. I was watching CBS this morning. I guess it's now CBS Mornings. Ed O'Keefe is here in Eau Claire. I'm a big Ed O'Keefe fan, so maybe I'll use the opportunity to get out and walk around and see if I can find Ed O'Keefe.
Well, there you go. I mean, there's all kinds of folks in town today. JD Vance is apparently going to be in town as well. Getting back to Tony's comment about yeah,
I did my civic duty. I went last night. Got into town.
Here's the thing. While we reestablish contact here, and this is a Big Bang Theory joke. There's a character there, Will Wheaton, and occasionally the Sheldon character gets mad at him and shouts out, "Wheaton!"
And I warned the.
And there you go. And now he just dropped right up.
This is great. All right, cool. Todd, if you want to call in, we can do that. But this is
Yeah. Hopefully he'll give us a call on the studio line, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-75-CIVIC. Anyway, north of Eau Claire is the Eau Claire Chippewa County line. And north of the county line right there by him is the Chippewa County town of Wheaton, which is, for some reason, just renowned for its bad cell phone reception. And I don't know if it's is that a phone company thing? Is the town not allowing enough towers to be built? But it's a running joke with with me and Sherry, we'll be trying to make a phone call there, and they'll get dropped, and we'll just go, Wheaton! And because that's
that show so much.
That's what it is. It's something in the town of Wheaton, just does not. And so I'm hopeful that for this rally today, we'll get a nice clean feed from the satellite trucks that are there for all the networks and things. Because if we were depending on a cell phone signal to get that out, well, you can hear for yourself just how well that's going to go. But I'll tell you what, if you've got the Eau Claire police chief there from Selena Heller, we'll play that in just a second here.
I do.
Because, again, the chief was part of a large presence yesterday as they were getting the site ready. And it was wonderful that Selena Heller was able to stop by there last evening and talk to Chief Matt Rokas about the security and about the role of the Eau Claire PD versus the Secret Service.
With recent events, there are heightened concerns about tomorrow's events. We're working very hard with our partners, whether it be the Secret Service or other law enforcement agencies. There's a very good plan in place, and we're going to do our very best to make sure it's a safe event. The U.S. Secret Service is the lead agency for events like this. Their primary responsibility is protection of the dignitary who's visiting us. With both events being in the city of Eau Claire, our department has a large role in ensuring the safety of the visitor. Also the attendees that'll be coming out to see them speak as well. Our role and responsibility has to do with getting them to the site, whether it be coming into the airport, motorcade to the site security for the site itself, and then getting them, helping them on to their next stop, outside of Eau Claire.
And they will, as they'll be heading to Michigan afterwards for a rally there as well. And Todd just texted in his apologies, and I did warn him ahead of time that area is notorious for that. So we'll keep that in mind for his efforts to broadcast later today. Although, as I understand it, it won't be so much about hearing Todd, because Civic Media is going to carry the remarks from the vice president, from her new running mate, and so Todd will talk about it later when he's got a really good connection. And I think that folks will really enjoy. For anybody that didn't catch the rally in Philly yesterday, I think you're really going to like hearing something that, again, is upbeat, that certainly understands that, campaigns are a battle, but it's a battle of ideas. It's not supposed to be a literal battle. And that's what I think, Greg, folks are going to get out of this. I think people are going to be driving away in a different frame of mind than people who are, say, coming out of a Trump rally.
I mean, don't forget, people who go to and drive away from a Trump rally, when they hear the words he says, they're just as fired up because they believe in that rhetoric and style. But once again, as I said before, it just has this, this sense of good and excitement and positivity that, especially when people had this feeling of the Biden campaign is like, oh gosh, we support him, but when Kamala came out there was a shot of energy, and Tim Walz is just another shot of energy.
Yes, exactly. And so people will get to hear that today. Of course, you'll be talking more about it on Matt and Air on Air 2 little hours from now about that. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, Todd Allbaugh will be along perhaps on either side of today's rally, again, depending on the signal. Our thanks to today's guests, Melissa Baldauff, Melissa Kay, Sachin Chetta, and thanks to all of you for being here today. Don't forget, we have our Women Win Wisconsin segment coming up tomorrow. Up North News is the Wisconsin outlet for Courier, a nationwide pro-democracy news network building a more informed, engaged, and representative America. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.